Welcome back to the Go Shout Love podcast. This month, we're excited to introduce you to the families of 3 awesome kiddos from the Houston area, Hadley, Nathan, and Hollyn. Hadley and Hollyn are sisters, and they find strength in facing their medical journey together, along with their cousin Nathan. In this episode, Josh chats with both sets of parents, including Nathan's parents, Johnathon and Michelle, along with Hadley and Hollyn's parents, Josh and Devon. You'll hear the story of each child's diagnosis and learn of a special family friend who nominated Hadley as a featured Go Shout Love kiddo while on her own medical journey. You'll also learn about the inspiration behind this month's Enjoy the Magic of Being Alive t-shirt. Head over to our website, goshout.love, and pick up your t-shirt, mug, hat, and more. Each purchase will go towards helping these 2 awesome families with medical costs not covered by insurance. If you'd like to shout love with us each month, join us as a monthly subscriber where we will ship you a new shirt at the beginning of each month. Use the code PODCAST at checkout for $5 off your first order when you start a monthly subscription. If you love what Go Shout Love is all about, consider rating and reviewing our podcast on iTunes so more people will join us in shouting love. Thanks for listening.
Hey everyone, this is Josh with Go Shout Love. Before we jump into my interview with Josh, Devon, Michelle, and Johnathon, I wanted to give you a bit of context on something. As you heard in the intro, we're featuring 3 kiddos this month, but as you listen to the interview, you'll recognize that most of the medical discussion focuses on Hadley and Nathan, but doesn't include Hollyn. When we visited these 2 awesome families in January, our plan was to feature Hadley and Nathan. But since our visit, Hadley's younger sister Hollyn has been showing symptoms consistent with the early stages of Hadley's condition, and doctors are exploring whether there is an underlying, unknown, rare medical condition that both Hadley and Hollyn might have. With this in mind, the Go Shout Love team felt that we absolutely needed to shout love for Hollyn in March as well. So you won't hear much about Hollyn's medical journey in this episode, but the developments for their family since January make it even more important that we show up big for them in March and support them. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy my chat with these great parents. Thanks, everybody, for joining us on the Go Shout Love podcast. I'm Josh, and we are in Houston, Texas, and we're sitting down with Josh and Devon, who are parents to Hadley, and Johnathon and Michelle, who are parents to Nathan. Guys, thanks for joining us. Sure. And for sharing your story. Let's just first, I'll have Johnathon, you share a little bit. You guys live here in Houston, right?
Yes, we live in Katy.
Okay. And then your son Nathan has a diagnosis of leukemia. So Michelle, tell us just a little bit about his diagnosis, his age, and when he received his diagnosis.
Yeah. So Nathan is 4, and he received his diagnosis at 3. We're coming up on a year since diagnosis, and he has pre-B acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
Okay. And Devon, tell us a little bit about Hadley and her diagnosis.
Absolutely. Hadley is now 6. She was diagnosed at age 3 with autoimmune encephalitis. And since then have uncovered a metabolic disorder, a heart condition, and some other adrenal insufficiency type stuff. So going on nearly 3 years of fighting this battle with a chronically ill child. So
what was the first indicator? So that first diagnosis kind of unlocked a lot of other things that came.
It's like we opened Pandora's box. I mean, we went to sleep on a Sunday. We had to make her go to bed. She was energetic and happy and just happy about the weekend. We'd had a great weekend with some friends and woke up the next morning, and it's like she woke up a different kid. She had a headache and was vomiting and started hallucinating. And before we could get her to Texas Children's with a life flight, she had fallen into a coma. And so we literally arrived at the hospital with just minutes to spare. And so since then, we've uncovered a lot of rare conditions that have gone on with her. But it all started with autoimmune encephalitis.
So you guys don't live specifically in Houston. Texas Children's is in Houston. Where do you guys live?
We live just north of Beaumont in a little bitty town called Kirbyville. And so we travel back and forth to the hospital pretty frequently. It's about a 2.5 to 3 hour trip. So we come every other week at least. Sometimes it's more frequent than that. Every now and then we get a break and get a couple of weeks in between our visits, but it's usually pretty frequent.
So you've gotten to know the car very well.
Yes, we are great travelers.
Yeah, you drive it with our eyes closed.
You have great bird box.
Yeah, exactly.
Bird box.
Do you have like set playlists that you have for the trips, or are there movies that you just kind of run through that you can memorize now you've driven it so many times? Or
it was probably something new every week. We'll get on a kick with a certain band, or Greatest Showman might be playing in the DVD player, and then we do audiobooks and stuff like that sometimes too.
21 Pilots.
21 Pilots.
21 Pilots.
It's a big fave in our family.
Yeah. So we've established the kiddos and the parents. Let's bring the connection together. So Michelle and Devon, you guys are cousins, correct? So just tell us a little bit, Devon, about your relationship with Michelle.
We grew up together, and we were the cousins, I think, that were more sisters than cousins. We spent probably more days than not, especially before school, before kindergarten, playing with each other. And so her mom kept me and my brother while our parents worked. So there really was sort of a sibling relationship more so than a cousin relationship. Yeah. So many of my childhood memories are tied to her, both positive and probably negative on her part too. We on more than one occasion gotten a little bit of trouble together, but it was fun. Yeah.
So have you guys maintained that closeness over all these years, or has diagnosis impacted that relationship?
I think, life kind of happens, and we've always been close, but it's been one of those, just talk on the phone, pick up where we left off type things, every couple of months, or, holidays and things like that. But definitely when Hadley was diagnosed, because they are so close to the hospital, they were a great resource for us. But certainly after Nathan was diagnosed.
Much closer,
yeah. Reconnected in a lot of ways, and just sort of redefined our support for one another. Yeah.
Devon was one of the first calls I made, just because I was like, okay, we're transferring to Texas Children's in Fannin. This place inside and out. Teach it to me. And so she was like, coffee's on this floor. And it's like those little nuances, like the doctors, all that stuff, that's, it's going to happen. But the important things, where do you get coffee? Where do you shower? Right.
Yeah, the little things.
Where do you get the good food? Those things are important. Right.
Yeah. So, Johnathon, how as a dad, when you found out about the diagnosis that Nathan had, what was your first thought as a dad?
My first thought, the world just stopped.
Yeah.
It's like, what does the future hold for my son? And how do we beat this? Is literally the first thing I thought. Because I refuse for him to be buried before me.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Was that at that initial diagnosis, was that on your mind as a real possibility?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
It always
is. It was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that doesn't go away.
No.
Yeah.
It's always there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Where have you guys found support to make it through such a difficult journey? I know your diagnosis is different, and which comes with some differences, but at the end of the day, you don't get to experience, or even your kids don't get to experience the quote normal that those of us that aren't in your shoes, you don't have to think about the extra germs that can be just fought through if a kid gets a cold. So where have you found support?
I think Jonathan's description was perfect, because that's absolutely what it feels like. Is for us, Hadley got sick quickly, and so I'll never forget the feeling of feeling like the world just stopped when you're watching them put her on a ventilator, and you're just kind of going, 48 hours ago we were outside climbing trees and jumping on the trampoline, and now she can't breathe on her own. And so
it's a whole new normal.
Yeah.
It's a whole new respect for what normal will be for your child.
And I think initially it can be, for us, or I guess for me, it was lonely, because your worries are no longer the same as everyone else's. I used to worry about what was on sunscreen and what was in hot dogs, and now I'm like, what's in the chemo we're fixing to give my baby? But so I think your support system changes, and for me, it's been, I think, absolutely our faith, just trusting that there's something bigger than us that gives a purpose to our suffering. but then also linking up with other moms that are like Michelle and I walking a similar journey. So you kind of like you wake up on a different planet a little bit and start speaking a little bit of a different language, but I would say other moms and families of chronically ill children have been a huge support for us. And it doesn't even have to be the same diagnosis for us, but in general.
Yeah, and I think support comes from different places. I know initially when we were in the hospital for that first month, our church family was incredibly supportive. A lot of people showed up. And just, with random things, might be, a stack of 20s to live in the hospital for a week. Just people showing up to just visit and kind of take your mind off things. And so, our church family, close friends, of course, our families. And then also, I think another form of support, too, is just people that have kind of gone this journey before us. Yeah. Because it's a different sort of thing. It's like if you haven't lived it, you can't fully understand it. And so sometimes with people that have, chronically ill children or that have spent an extended stay in a hospital, you can just kind of know what the other person is experiencing. And just that shared knowledge gives you some hope and some comfort at the same time.
You both couples, you have other children. So a lot of the families that we've talked to, they're going through these things, and it's their only child. And I can only imagine that parenting's hard. We have two, and one that's brand new, and parenting's just hard in general. And so I have incredible amount of respect and just you guys are incredible to raise and sacrifice and support your kids and lead them so well. When you're dealing with on a rare medical journey, but then to throw in the idea of other kids and trying to make sure that in the midst of doing all the things that you have to do to take care of your child that's going through this, keeping some level of normalcy and love and just keeping the connection with them too. How have you guys journeyed through that? How do you approach that?
So for us, we try to say, like, one of us will stay with Nathan and one of us will take Emma out. And so we kind of switch off which one can go and try to make sure she gets some fun stuff. Because, Nathan is quarantined in the house, but Emma doesn't have to be, but she kind of is because it's not fair for her to go to Chuck E. Cheese if Nathan can't go to Chuck E. Cheese or a place.
If she goes to Chuck E. Cheese and brings that home, and
that has happened inadvertently, and then you're like,
sure. Yeah.
Parent fail, but it happens, Yeah. But I think the biggest thing is, we also switch off with who she lays with at night to go to bed. And so we just try, because a lot of it for Emma, she's having a hard time because, I was working outside the mom home. And then now I am home pretty much exclusively with Nathan. And so she has a hard time with the fact that now all of a sudden he's getting all my attention and she's not. So it's
sure.
Definitely a struggle, definitely a juggle to try to make sure that she feels as loved.
Right.
During all of it, I'm sure.
And Emma is six, right?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think for us it's similar. It means dividing and conquering is usually how we have to do it. And so it may mean that, and for Hadley, her condition is one that can change quickly. So we can go from okay to really not okay pretty quickly. And so there's been a few times that we've literally been in the middle of a family movie night and Hadley sort of out of nowhere takes a turn and mom is in the car in 20 minutes headed to the hospital. And so we may be there for a week and Hayden's going, I just kind of wanted my popcorn to finish a movie. And so, but that may mean sort of that one parent is carrying the load at the hospital by themselves, and that's hard. Michelle and I both have been, and I'm sure Jonathan and Josh too, have both been in positions where you can't leave the room to shower or get food because you're by yourself, because you're trying to keep as much normalcy for the other kids at home. And our crew has a great ability to do it on holidays. And so both the last two Christmases we've spent at Texas Children's in the middle of the day where we had the morning great Christmas and that afternoon we're on our way to the hospital. And so just trying to help him be flexible and just keeping an open line of communication with him, I think, is the biggest thing, because he is an internalizer.
Yeah.
He's not a kid that's going to talk about it.
I think making sure that, you can really communicate to the siblings and, kind of keep things cleaned out. And I know another thing, too, that a lot of people don't think of is like, the child that's sick tends to get doted on by everyone. And sometimes that means like random presents, random gifts and yada, yada, yada. And so, they're enjoying that. The sibling is thinking, okay, why is she getting all this stuff and I'm not? And so that's 6-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old kid, that's really hard to figure out.
Sure.
So I think sometimes they can kind of tend to think, well, I'm getting the raw end of the deal here.
Yeah. They don't understand that poke or that hospital visit or whatever wasn't fun.
Right.
It's just, all they see is the presents that the one gets and the other doesn't. So,
It's like, it's like Devon said, it's getting up, to go to the hospital and, Emma, she gets super upset, 100.4 fever,
you gotta go. Yeah.
We're starting to pack all the bags and get everything ready, and Nathan's like, I don't want to go.
He knows what's going to happen. He gets upset, and so then it upsets him.
He gets upset, and then it just snowballs all the way through.
Yeah, and so just for context, you said Hayden is Hadley's older brother. He's 9, is that right?
Well, he's 8.
He's 8. Okay, and then Hollyn, younger sister, is 2.
She will be 2.
She will be 2. Man, I'm so sorry. I got
no,
it's
okay.
wrong.
Well, she's
So they are. You've got that's a difficult range because they're responding differently.
Sure. Very differently.
But I think what's cool and really challenging, and as parents, is that kids learn, like, how we love is a learned behavior.
Absolutely.
And you guys are setting this example, this model of your finding purpose and maybe peace even in suffering, and to be able to do your best. Nobody's perfect at this, but to do your best to model that.
Right.
And even along the bumps of the road, I'm sure that Hayden will benefit from seeing mom and dad be strong, and Emma will benefit from seeing mom and dad do their best and fight through and continue to provide and care for as much as possible. And I'm incredibly, I'm just in awe of parents like you guys that take this on. I want to make sure that we cover some things. Specifically, one of the things that we do at Go Shout Love is to try to capture your stories, your individual stories, and share that. So that way we bring awareness to the conditions, but that we also let people connect with your kids and really feel like they get to know your kids. And then in that, you're going to get encouraging messages from people all over the country, which is great. And whatever financial benefit we can bring, we're going to do that too. We're going to work as hard as we can to bring in sales that benefit you guys. So on that front, what are the biggest needs for you as a family? And how this will work is because this is a little bit different. We haven't done a kind of combined month like this, but what we'll do is as sales come in, the portions will be split for both of your families. So we're going to do everything that we can. What are the most pressing needs for you guys that, if somebody was able to make a difference financially, what are those lowest hanging fruit needs that you guys have?
With a chronically ill child, there's always a need, but no, I just recently went back to work full time, and part of that was to cover medical expenses because it just is astronomical, and some of the medications Hadley gets are $25,000 to $30,000 a treatment.
Yeah. And even with insurance, it's still
with insurance, that's intermittently covered.
Yeah, we usually hit our max out of pocket by like February, something like that. But it's not just the medical bills; it's also the travel. It's you go to Texas Children, it's $10 for parking. It's,
$13 now.
$13
for park now.
Mom's on cue.
They know. And then there's the meals while you're there, and then if you get blood work done, well, you have to stop by the gift shop and buy the $20 stuffed animal that you don't need to deal with the poke. So it's just aside from just the medical bills, there's just a lot of hidden expenses, emergency room trips, that sort of thing.
We live within Houston, but with that comes the tollway. The fastest route for us is the tollway. It's $11 a trip, just in tolls, just to get Nathan. And that's, when you've got to get him there within 20 minutes, you've got to get him, to the hospital immediately. Right. So the tolls, just the different.
Is there a toll pass? I'm sorry.
So there's an easy tag that you can get that we do, but so we have something on our car, but still, it comes out of your account. Right. It's just little, like Josh said, it's the meals, for kids on chemo, and Nathan takes steroids once a month. It's like this big ultra, like I have this manly appetite all of a sudden where, and I want what I want when I want it, and it's almost like a pregnant woman on steroids. Like imagine a pregnant woman
and it's like Doritos and like chips. That's Hadley too.
Or chicken Alfredo, or it's like they just and when your kid's losing weight, you're doing whatever you can to make
Sure.
them eat, so it's
Yeah.
calories. But there's so many hidden.
Yeah, and
fees.
monthly medications
Yeah.
because they're
I forgot about that. Woo.
continuing
Childcare.
meds. Yeah,
So now for us, we have to have in-home childcare because you can't go to daycare because that's in-home nannies are much more expensive
Sure.
than sending them to a daycare. So
Which-
it's
yeah.
different things
Yeah,
like
because
that.
Hadley and Nathan both have compromised immune systems because of the chemotherapies and the
Right.
treatment that they're taking, and so there is definitely sort of the hidden. It's a whole new layer to life.
Forget the lack of FMLA, unpaid leave from work, those things.
Yeah.
Right. So, Michelle, you said that you stay at home now, and what work were you in before?
So I am able to work from home. My
Okay.
company has been amazing.
That's
I'm
awesome.
crazy blessed. I work in procurement.
Okay.
So I'm purchasing for a chemical company
Okay.
in the area, and I'm able to do a lot of what I do from home, and that's been a huge blessing.
Yeah.
A pain because it's very
Sure.
hard to work with a needy
Yeah.
4-year-old, but
Yeah.
you do what you got to do.
But what a blessing.
I'm very
flexible
blessed, extremely
employers.
blessed.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so, Jonathan, what kind of work are you in?
So I'm a field service manager, and unfortunately my company's not as flexible, so I have to go in and I have to be off site. But, when Michelle needs to go in, I have to take unpaid or I have to take my vacation. Literally this past year, spent all my vacation for when I had to stay at home or we had to stay at the hospital.
Yeah.
But we do what we got to do to get it done.
We call it our timeshare to make us feel better about
It
it.
is. It's timeshare. Wait, that's a great idea.
Where are you going?
We
What
should
are our
change that to
timeshare?
Timeshare.
Yeah.
Our
It sounds a
timeshare.
little
That's
better.
not sarcastic at all. It's you really feel that way. It's
We have
really
And the
do.
cost of it is
Right.
kind of similar to some timeshares, I guess.
Yeah.
Just the
yeah.
I mean, we could have been in
family
Europe somewhere,
time,
but
family
Yeah.
time,
We'll take it.
bonding.
Yeah. So, Josh, you are an associate pastor at a church in your town, right?
Yes, I'm an associate pastor and then also a therapist. Do less of that now. Teach at a school a couple of days a week, which I really enjoy. But my schedule is such that I can work from home a lot as well and kind of set my own hours. Now, sometimes that may mean that I'm working from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m., but at least I have the luxury of being home when I need to be home and can kind of juggle things that way. So that's been a really big blessing. And everybody that I work for and work with are really understanding and really, really helpful. So I couldn't ask for a better job or better coworkers.
Yeah.
It's not like parents of chronically ill children sleep anyway, so we might as well crank
Might
out
as
the
well
work.
be-
That's
might
what
as
I
well be
usually
doing
do. I'm like,
something,
let's
yeah.
just crank out some work.
Yeah. And so, Devon, you're a therapist as well, correct?
yes,
Okay.
I am a therapist at a hospital and absolutely love my job. So was blessed that when I had to go back, that received just an incredible opportunity to go to a job that I love. So at least if I have to be away, we can do that. And so we often are a little bit like ships in the night, where I get home and then he leaves sort of for work. But we would, you do what you got to do to make it work.
Yeah.
And so my job is also pretty flexible. It's, a lot of it is unpaid time, but at least they allow me the time
Right.
to get off, when I need to get off. And I work with a team of therapists that are very accommodating, that understand that, if Hadley's sick, that I may be gone for a week or 2 weeks or a month. But they have always just been incredibly supportive. So, and that way I'm very, very thankful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to jump to we heard Devon, you talk about kind of what happened to Hadley, that she was fine one day and then you were within minutes. It seems like you're facing the fear of losing her and going to the emergency room. What was the journey that brought Nathan's diagnosis? What presented that caused extra tests or whatever?
Nathan had a limp.
Okay.
That was the only thing that he wasn't any more pale than normal. He wasn't any more bruised than normal. So when you think of leukemia, typically, if you know about leukemia, you think of bruising, you think of very pale in color. We didn't have that. He had a limp, and so it started. We thought he had been playing in some bounce houses, and he had been playing outside, and so we just thought that it was perhaps an injury from something he had done. He had started gymnastics, and so I got a call from the daycare, and they were like, Nathan's limping. I think he's got a dislocated knee. And so I was like, oh gosh. So I sent him to urgent care. And so we bring to urgent care, and they do x-rays and look at it. And they're like, just follow up with your doctor in a couple weeks. So Nathan still was limping a little. His dad took him in to the pediatrician, just the regular pediatrician. And they poked, prodded, pulled, no pain, no anything out of the normal. So they sent us on our merry way again. Don't let him do any activities for another week. And so then it was another week when I was actually away on travel when Nathan first presented his heaviest. And
He was limping, And
it was getting worse.
It was, he started dragging his foot.
He started dragging his leg, and I brought the kids to daycare, and I went and parked in the parking lot beside it, waited for sister to go ahead and leave because she was going to kindergarten at the time, so kindergarten would bring her to school. Went back in, and I took Nathan to Texas Children's Pediatric right there at Cinco Ranch, and they were like, well, he doesn't have an appointment. I said, well, I'm not leaving until he sees his doctor.
So you knew immediately.
It
was like,
something's progressing. This is not...
Something's wrong.
Never in our wildest did it think of leukemia, though.
Mm-hmm. Never in our dreams. Literally about 10 minutes later, they're like, well, you can see the NP. NP looked at him, went and got Dr. Jasani, and Dr. Jasani looked at him and literally had us at the orthopedist that afternoon. The orthopedist took another set of x-rays, and we went on ahead and got the x-rays from the urgent care as well. And that's when it was kind of uncovered that the urgent care took the right leg x-rays, and he was dragging his left leg.
It had traveled, and we didn't know it. I mean, we just didn't notice. We just saw him.
Oh, so they didn't take the wrong x-ray.
No,
it was presenting in one leg and
in one leg,
shifted.
which what we have now learned with leukemia is common.
Yes. Okay.
So it's if anyone has a child that's limping that isn't getting better, ask for blood work.
Yep.
And the other thing is, childhood cancer is extremely common, more common than people realize, but blood tests annual are not done. Mm-hmm. And so only by the grace of God, if you will, did the orthopedist pull blood, do blood, because normally orthopedists don't even pull blood. And so he saw something on the x-ray that he thought might have been an infection. Yeah. And so he was like, let's go ahead and do a blood culture. Within an hour, we were getting a phone call going, we need you to go to the emergency room. His red cells are low. His white cells.
Are you still out of town at this?
I am in the middle of a nor'easter in New Jersey. I could not get home.
So did you wait? How long did it take to actually get the diagnosis from that moment?
Okay.
That was 6 o'clock Wednesday evening.
She beat the doctor
in Eastern.
Calling me. She hung up and literally called me straight away and pretty much on the phone said he has leukemia.
I asked the doctor, I said, are you telling me he has leukemia? And he says, I'm telling you we need to run more tests.
Yep.
Only because there's a child from our
right
area
after that very first test.
That first blood work. Yeah, there's a child from our hometown that we had followed this story for a long time, and she had leukemia. And so when I followed her story and I knew what, you kind of learn some of this when you're following people's stories, you learn numbers, and I was like, this looks like leukemia. And then 6 o'clock, it was 6 o'clock I got that call Eastern time on March 7th. I was able to finally get a flight out at leave New Jersey at 6 o'clock the next morning. So I got to Houston around 11 o'clock noon on Thursday. And I remember calling to check in all night long. Anytime there was a doctor, Jonathan would call me and I'd listen on the phone. And when I got to the airport, I called immediately and the doctor started talking about bone marrow aspiration. And I knew, but I didn't know.
You didn't.
And they did it that night.
We both knew.
We found out the next morning, middle of the day, the next morning.
We really knew when the doctors pretty much did not come in first thing in the morning with the results from the bone marrow aspiration.
That, and then so when we didn't hear anything immediately, and then the doctor came and sat and talked to us for about an hour. The hematology oncologist sat and talked to us for about an hour that next morning after they'd done the aspiration, still waiting on the results. And he was like, so we'll probably have to transfer to Texas Children's if it's leukemia, or we'll have to if it's leukemia. So he was definitely prepping us. Yeah. And so then he walked in the door, we knew what it was.
What was the first thing that you did after getting that news?
We were in a very small little closet in the West Campus. And so we just sat there and looked at each other. And so my mom was with Nathan. Because Mom had come up. She was helping us with Emma.
And Child
Life was in there with Nathan. And we were just like, how do we tell everybody? What do we do? And thankfully, our doctor was like, I know you're going to Google, or only look at these 3 websites. And so, of course, immediately I was on those 3 websites, which was very helpful, actually, to know only where to go. And not, because The net is very scary when you have a chronically ill child.
Yeah.
So if you have a doctor that can tell you certain places, that was very helpful. So, we had to go tell my mom. We had to figure out how we would tell the rest of the family. We had to figure out how we were going to tell sister.
Yeah.
And we've been honest with her from the beginning.
Which is where Child Life with Texas Children's really came in. Child Life, we spoke with them. I guess we had 2 meetings with them before we told sister and how to explain it and all that. And I mean, hell, she took and ran with it. She explained to the kids at school. She explained to other members of the family.
Kids are incredible.
They are incredible.
How
They're resilient.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've empowered her, absolutely.
I want to jump to specifically getting to introduce these awesome kids that you have, and so we talked a little bit about this before we sat down. But describe. I'll talk. Josh and Devon, describe Hadley in 3 words. Her personality. What makes her who she is?
She's tenacious.
Yeah, definitely that. Tenacious, spunky, and probably brave. Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah.
She's just a fun-loving kid. She really never craps about anything. Doesn't ask for a lot. She's not one of those kids that are like, hey, I want this, I need this. It's sort of like, no, unless she's getting a poke, then she's going to ask for a stuffed animal.
She knows. Yeah. She knows when she can cash in. Yeah.
But outside of that,
prizes?
Yeah,
we do.
Y'all do
We
have,
do.
like the hospital does.
No, the
have
hospital.
prizes?
You asked what the money was for.
yeah.
No, see, and that's the hard part with Hadley's condition. It's not as established, so there's not as many sort of, I guess, supports.
Right.
Like
not quite the same network.
not
or
the same
resources,
network. Yeah, because we really
Or volunteers.
Yeah,
because
volunteers.
like the oncology floor has all kind of food all the time and a big family room, and the neurology floor doesn't have it.
No, there's just not. It's just a rare
unfortunate.
condition, and so
For context, how rare is what Hadley, her diagnosis?
she is the youngest that we have ever come across that has her particular type of autoimmune encephalitis, and so it's pretty rare. We have found one other little friend, her name is Grace, that is a couple of months older than Hadley that has the same type of autoimmune encephalitis. So it's very rare.
Is she in this area?
No, she's in Atlanta. Yeah, in Georgia.
Have they met?
No, they haven't met yet. Her mom and I keep in close contact, so we talk pretty frequently. So one day we want to make it happen, just because we think it would be great. Yeah. Absolutely. But no, Hadley, I say brave because she's a kid that we're very honest with her, and so even like this morning, she had to go. She had a procedure, and she knew going in, but she will walk in. She'll walk in crying and scared,
but
she walks in. And she has faced probably more fear than I've ever faced in my life.
What has she taught you?
I think just how to buck up and get it done.
Yeah.
That
How to be brave.
how to be brave. Yeah.
How to be brave, and how to just enjoy life. Because in the midst of everything that she has going on, she's still going to enjoy her day. Whether that's a full day at the hospital, she's going to have a fun in between the different stuff that she has to deal with. Yeah. She's going to have a fun day at the hospital. So I think for us as adults, it's so easy to get so caught up in work, and the grass has to be mowed, the cars have to be cleaned. I've got to get this project done, all of that stuff. But I think sometimes we just lose just the magic of being alive and just enjoying the day to day. Yeah, and sometimes we just miss out on the mundane. And so she's taught us a lot how to live.
Yeah.
Let's jump to Nathan. What has Nathan taught you, Jonathan, as a dad?
It's live each day for what it is, because tomorrow is never promised.
Yeah.
Mom?
Oh, he has taught me how to just face whatever whatever you have, whatever's in front of you, just face it, embrace it, and just move forward, plow forward, because what other option do you have, Yeah. He's also very brave, knowing he's going to get a poke, or knowing, that, whatever's to come, and he just, like they said, very much like Hadley, he's going to have a good day. He's going to make the best of it. He's going to find a friend. He may or may not talk to them, but he will have a friend. They may sit next to each other, but they may not be friends. But it's just, enjoy it. Just live life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to jump to prognosis and day-to-day treatment and things like that. So, Devon, give us a quick rundown on what the treatment looks like in maintenance for Hadley, and then
Sure.
and really what doctors have told you to expect in the years to come.
The hard part with Hadley is because this condition is really just been discovered probably in the last 10 years, maybe 12
Wow.
years.
Yeah, 10 years ago it would have been a whole different outcome.
They're
Wow.
really
Yeah.
prognosis varies. They can't give us a prognosis. We are using Hadley's case to write treatment protocols. And so we have the best doctors in the world, but they would also tell you we are kind of making it up as we go because there's no other really kid in the world like Hadley. And so we've done all kinds of different treatments. We've done IVIG, we've done oral chemotherapies. Now we're on infusion chemotherapies to knock back, in an attempt to knock back her immune system and to try to see if that works. But as far as her prognosis, no one can reassure us that we'll have her forever, but we could.
Yeah.
Or we could lose her in a year from now.
Yeah.
But I think sort of the place that Josh and I have come to is just realizing that nobody has that assurance, But I think when you have a chronically ill child or a child with a condition like Hadley's, because we've seen moms lose their babies to this condition, that veil is torn.
Yeah.
And so you sort of live having that knowledge, and so
You're forced to be closer to that reality.
You're forced to sort of live with that reality, and sometimes it feels like it's just kind of hanging over you, but most days it makes the mundane things that I would have not enjoyed before more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of, you peer behind the curtain and just really forget, because we live under this illusion of control that we think, we can protect our kids from everything and everything's going to be fine. You just never know from the day to day. I mean, we could all get in a car accident tomorrow and be gone, and you forget about that. And so it just kind of reminds you that life is short, and so enjoy it. And but at the same time, we are very, very hopeful, and we believe and choose to believe that Hallie's going to have a long, productive, full life. Mm-hmm. And despite her her setbacks, she has just come incredibly far. I think we would say, in a lot of ways, it's been miraculous to see how far she's come. Mm-hmm. I know when we were admitted, we spent a month there, and the progress she made in that month, most of her neurologists were like, "We've never seen anything like this," And so we one neurologist in particular, Dr. Balasa, he was like, "Yeah, this is just on the verge of miraculous," and so we choose to believe that God's had a hand in where she's at. And,
because she came out of the coma really unable to speak. She didn't know who we were.
She didn't do anything. She didn't recognize us.
Yeah.
That was like a horror story. She bit my face one night because she didn't know who I was.
Well, she was hallucinating a lot of the stuff.
She came out of that coma. What's the time frame from coming out of that coma from like that first night of getting life flighted?
She was life flighted. She fell into the coma that night. She could still breathe on her own for the next probably about 36 hours. And then we had to intubate her. Mm-hmm. And then it was probably 2 weeks. And this whole time we didn't have a diagnosis.
So we don't know what's going on. So
we're just sort of standing there watching this happen, and no one can really tell us what's going on.
And then they give her steroids, which they also failed to warn you that kids go crazy when they're pumped full of steroids.
Right. Yeah.
So we've got a brain problem going on. She's pumped full of steroids. She's acting just wild.
So you have a really strong child ready to bite your face.
And that's pretty much what happened.
And she didn't know who we were.
Right.
So we couldn't provide any comfort because to her we were the
same.
We were the enemies,
She was lost in her body.
Lost in her
so
own body,
it was, and so
Bless her.
then we spent. So after she came out of the coma, it was didn't recognize us, couldn't say anything,
Couldn't use her left side.
She would just kind of look at you and grunt sometimes, and we're thinking this is going to be her for the rest of our lives. And then 2 weeks later, she was coloring, and she said red, and we were like, whoa. She just said, did she recognize that color? And then from there on, it was just like everything started coming back to her.
Gosh.
And the neurologists were like, this is incredible.
So they really had no idea what to tell you, what to predict for the next week.
Right.
And she just started coming back.
We started about the 2 week mark when she was stable enough. We started they did hours of therapy in the hospital. So we met with speech therapy, occupational, physical therapy.
She wouldn't eat and drink.
And she wasn't able to eat and drink on her own, so we had a feeding tube. And then I have a background in child development. And so when they weren't there, I was on the floor with her doing anything we could think of. And so the poor kid never got a break. I mean, we pushed her, but it was probably, I guess, about an 18-month recovery once we came home that we really felt like, okay, she's back.
Back to baseline. Back to herself,
Wow, my goodness. Yeah. So, there's a chance that somebody listening either has recently gone through a similar situation, or heaven forbid may go through a situation like this. So, Josh, what would you say to yourself if you could go back and tell yourself you're in that 2-week period of the unknown? You're sitting in the hospital. What would you tell yourself on this side of not a smooth road now?
Yeah.
But you're at a different place. What would you tell yourself?
I guess I would probably tell myself to, again, I know we kind of keep going back to this, but to live in the moment, to stay present, because during the midst of difficulty and pain, we have the tendency, and rightly so, to want to escape it and to move forward and try to live there. But I think you have to live in that moment and walk what you're going through, and be present for the people in your life that really need you. And I think I would also probably tell myself that it's going to be okay. That regardless of the outcome, that it's going to be okay.
Right.
And, and a lot of times in that situation, you don't have a lot of people telling you it's going to be okay. No. And we always laugh because we had one doctor come in one day. It was probably like 2 weeks into it, and I was just blubbering because, our child who was perfectly healthy, she doesn't recognize me. I mean, she can't say, I love you. She can't do the smallest thing. So I'm just like, a puddle on the floor, just a mess. And this one doctor come in, and he was like, she's going to get better. I really believe that. And that's what I needed to hear.
The doctor said that.
Yeah, the doctor said that. Whether he meant it, I have no idea. But that's what I needed to hear in that moment.
But that was the first...
It was hope.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is we just needed hope.
Yeah.
I mean, we were acutely aware that we may lose her, but we needed hope.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be, pie in the sky or, telling me lies. I mean, in a situation like that, you want the facts, but you also need somebody to come alongside you. And even if that somebody is yourself, to say, it's going to be okay. Yeah. You're going to get through this. This is just a period in your life, and things are going to get better.
Yeah, and I think that's for people of faith, especially. I think there's a certain element of there's no promised outcome,
right?
But there's a promised presence.
Yeah,
that you may go through extreme ugly, but you're not going to go through it alone.
That's it,
right? Yeah, and I think that was the biggest thing we clung to is. Regardless, if we lost her or if we brought home the little girl that didn't recover much from after the coma, which by the grace of God we didn't. Mm-hmm. I mean, we brought home a very different little girl, but by the grace of God we saw her recover.
Right.
But we weren't promised that. But I think the thing that our faith gave us was purpose in that suffering, and realizing that there was something bigger going on than just us standing in a hospital room for a month, wondering what it was going to look like. That we felt like, regardless of the outcome, it was going to be okay, that there's a bigger purpose and a plan. And so having that hope absolutely was crucial.
And I can't imagine, I know sometimes when you go through difficult times like this, a lot of people sort of give up on that hope or give up on the idea of God being present or why does God allow bad things to happen. But for us, it was very much the idea of, really, what other option do you have? It's either I'm going to trust that God's good and that He has a plan and that He knows me in this situation, that He's here with me, or the other option was despair and darkness, and I certainly didn't want to look down that hallway, and so we chose to cling to God and His goodness even during a difficult time.
Mm-hmm. Michelle, tell us a little bit about Nathan's prognosis and treatment.
Yeah, so very different, obviously, from Hadley. So Nathan's leukemia, type of leukemia, is one that has been studied very, very deeply for the last 20 years. So there's a very good protocol, very well written protocol. So he isn't in the 75. He has a 75% chance of recovery, staying in remission for the next 5 years. And so with leukemia, there's never you can never really call it cured. Mm-hmm. Kind of. Not the same, but kind of similar to encephalitis. So it's a sneaky little thing, and it will definitely come back. But so from the leukemia, we feel very strongly that he has a good chance of remaining in remission for a long time. also with it, so he's considered very high risk just because of the way his body responded to chemo early on. And so some kids who go through it have a 90% chance of remaining in remission. Nate's is around 75 for that group. But kids who go through the treatment that he goes through it's a 3.5-year treatment plan for Nathan. Chemo monthly, the first year it's weekly, and then daily stuff. But there's 3/4 of them that have some form of long-term illness by the time they're 40, or some long-term side effect. So it could be as simple as a behavioral side effect, to a secondary cancer, to all sorts of the things. So when you you have to hold on to hope, and you have to just know that if something like that happens, we'll get through it, because you definitely can't dwell on that. It's very easy to think about it. It's very easy to let your mind go there. And it happens on occasion. I think it's okay to do it on occasion, right? Sure. It's okay to go in the shower and cry and think about that, but you have to mom up, as Devon and I say. So we have a different saying, but mom up, and you just turn around and you find that hope, and you just hold on to your child and know that whatever God's plan is what's going to happen.
Yeah. Good. Jonathan, tell us. I want to ask you the same question I asked Josh. What would you tell a younger self, or a version, someone who's going through a similar diagnosis that what you guys have been through over this journey?
Stay positive and have your faith.
Yeah.
Have your faith. Faith is what has really carried me through the entire year. It's here. It's going to the church, and for dads, there's not so much of a camp of support organizations.
Right.
It's
true.
That's very true.
So, it's what I did is latch on my faith, and I don't know why I found it, but I happened to find my Bible from back in high school, and I pick it up and start reading it. That's it.
Yeah.
It's faith 100%.
Yeah.
Because in my heart, it's like God doesn't intend to do bad things, but it's a moment of learning.
Yeah.
For all of us. Why is our children going through this? I don't know.
Yeah.
But let's take and learn from it, and then we can share, just like we're doing here with other families.
Sure.
Because we got to be strong for each other. We got to be strong for our children. And if we can leverage our knowledge into other people, then maybe it might help them also.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think is a powerful thing that we probably just sometimes overlook is just the power of relationship, the power of being part of communities. And you both, I think you mentioned a Facebook community maybe. That we see that a lot with families, but as you mentioned, that there's not as much available for dads. Have you guys found anything that is a opportunity to connect with dads in a season like this?
Not really. Nothing that's established or any organizations. I know for me, it's just close friends and being able to to be honest with friends and say, hey, this really sucks.
Yeah,
those couple close friends that you always talk to and stuff like that. Mine's my brother, so me and my brother talk about it and stuff like that, but, just other close friends that I know that have had throughout the years, and we talk about
it. We're going to wrap up here shortly, and we're going to do a part 2 podcast where it's just the moms, and at that we're going to just quickly give you guys the opportunity to really talk about journeying through that together in those hospital moments, and maybe share some of those tips and share that with our audience. But I want to touch on how you guys how we got connected, and how you got connected to Go Shout Love. So we received a nomination for Hadley to be one of our featured kiddos from Casey. And Casey is a friend of Devon's. And Devon, I'd like, if you're okay with it, I'd like you just to kind of share Casey's story with us and your relationship with her.
Absolutely. Casey just passed away last Tuesday, actually, and so I'm going to try not to cry, but I'll do my best.
And that's okay if you do.
She is a jewel. We met her and her family. My husband's a pastor, and they came to our church, and we quickly noticed them because they have 2 sets of twins under 5. And she showed up like showered, bathed, kids were clean, and you know what I mean?
She's a miracle worker.
She's a miracle worker.
Yeah.
She could have parted the Red Sea, I'm convinced. And so I knew immediately when I met her she was Superwoman. But I sort of just had this feeling, if you knew her, she was just infectious. She just had this personality that really drew you in. And so, of course, shortly after her second set of twins were born, Casey was diagnosed with breast cancer. And so they had been following Hadley's story and were really encouraged and encouraging to us. And so we made it a point, like we talked about, diagnoses don't have to match, but when you kind of are facing this chronic or rare illness, you just feel this instant connection with one another. And so Casey and I definitely had that connection. So we spent lots of time on the road, driving back and forth to MD Anderson and talking about life. And when she became terminal, talking about death and what does that look like, and what would life be like for her kids and for her husband after she passed. And so Casey and Hadley shared a special connection. Casey would come stay with me in the hospital when Hadley was in the hospital, and she'd bring toys and sing songs and do crafts, and she was always much more fun than Mom for Hadley. And so it's been a big loss for Hadley too, definitely. But Casey is someone we'll never forget.
For sure.
Absolutely. And she was one of those people that just by her grace under fire shaped the lives of those around her.
She made this post on Facebook in June about Hadley and you. I know everyone has a hero. My hero comes from a 5-year-old girl. God walks with her daily, and you can see it. It has been one of the realest walks with Devon. To see his strength and power in this mama is something I can't even explain. And she asked for prayer for you in that moment. What a powerful model that she has left. And what an encouragement to all of us to make the most of our time here. Yeah. And to live a journey and an example that Casey has left for us, and that Hadley, even in her young age, and Nathan, even at his young age, is modeling for all of us. And so I'm just incredibly thankful that we've had the opportunity to gather. And I don't mean to wrap us up on a down note, because that's meant to be so positive. Because
she won her battle. She may not be here, but she won her battle.
But absolutely. You mentioned, both of you mentioned finding your place or your peace in that suffering, and to know that she has done that for you guys, and I'm sure countless others, in pointing how to journey through struggle and set that example. But thank you guys for your willingness to join us today and to sit around the table and just open up about what it looks like to walk this journey as parents, and to share with our community. And so we're going to be doing something unique and featuring both Hadley and Nathan in March 2019, and we can't wait to tell their story and shout love for your whole family. And we really hope that you guys will sense the community and the support, and not only from our Go Shout Love community, but for those that around you that you go to church with, or that your extended family, that they'll get to see and share and shout love with you. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's so good to
It's been good.
No problem.
We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Hadley, Nathan, and Hollyn's parents. Remember to use the code podcast at checkout to save $5 on your first order when you start a monthly subscription.